Hello. This week we're learning Parsha Korach. Korach was Moshe's first cousin, and he stages a rebellion against Moshe and Aaron. Together with a few ringleaders, he gathers another 250 well-known, respected people from the community, and all of them together accuse Moshe and Aaron of power building or for themselves and power grabbing activities or nepotism. It's one word which I can think of. What they say, what Korach says to Moshe in front of the whole community is the following. The entire congregation is holy and the Lord is in their midst. So why do you raise yourself above the Lord's assembly? Korach took a specific issue with the appointment of Aaron as a high priest. The thing is that he was talking about equality for everybody, but actually he wanted the job for himself. Moshe proposes that on the following day, they all participate in a test, which would determine who indeed was worthy of the mantle of high priest. Because Moshe was simply saying, it's not my decision, it's Hashem's decision. Where Korach and his supporters were accusing that some of the laws and some of the decisions which were made were Moshe's and Aaron's personal decisions. God was very angered by this behavior by Jews, particularly with the association with Korach, and he wished to destroy them. However, Moshe and Aaron pray on their behalf, and God spares most of the people. But the next morning, the earth opens up and swallows Korach and his family, and a heavenly fire consumes the rest of the 250 supporters. The next day, the community complains that Moshe and Aaron are to be blamed for the death of those God's people. So the discontent wasn't resolved. So God instructs Moshe and Aaron and tells them, separate yourself from the community and I will destroy them in an instant. And indeed a plague started amongst the nation and many thousands were dying. Seeing all of this, Moshe tells Aaron, quickly take a fire pan with incense and go into the midst of the congregation and atone for their sins. And Aaron does so, and he stands between the living and the dead, as a matter of fact, to great risk to himself, and the plague stopped. God tells Moshe to take stuff from each of the 12 tribes, because there was still a question remaining to prove that Aaron was chosen by Hashem to be the high priest. So on each staff, God told Moshe a name of the tribe's prince to be written, including Aaron, who was the head of the tribe of Levi. All of those stuffs were placed in the Holy of Holies chamber overnight, and next morning they were removed and a miracle took place. Aaron's staff was the only one which had budded and with almond blossoms and almonds on it. This was a further proof to everybody that Aaron was God's choice for high priest. Then Torah lists the various gifts to which the priests were entitled. Aaron is informed that his descendants will not receive a portion of the land at all, land of Israel, and instead God will be their inheritance, their portion. The Levites too will not receive a share of the land of Israel, and instead they are entitled to a tenth of all Israelites' crops for the tabernacle and temple services. which they provide, and upon receiving their teeth, their 1/10, the Levites must in turn separate 1/10 of that and give it to the Kohanim. And that's the whole content of this parsha. Well, a couple of things are not clear here, and let's try to understand them. Korach and his supporters were saying, you take too much upon yourselves, for the entire congregation are all holy, and the Lord is in their midst. So why do you raise yourself above Lord's assembly? If you think about this, Korach's statement is a statement of equality. In other words, everybody is even, everybody is equal, and everybody has got direct access to God. And why you and Aaron should be above all of us? So Korach was basically saying, we are all equal. There is no need for your superiority. There is no need for your limitations which you put on us. There is no need for you to tell us what to do. On the surface, it looks like there is nothing wrong with this statement from our modern point of view as well. He calls for equality amongst everybody. He says there is no need for privileges. We are all holy. So why God's punishment of Korach and those 250 good God-fearing people was so severe, so harsh? In order to understand this, we need to go a fair bit deeper into the Kabbalistic definition of the universe balance. Why the whole universe is in balance and how does it work? Let me say that nothing in the universe is equal one to another. Everything has its definition, its level, rank, its function in the scheme of things. None of us, Jews or non-Jews, are equal. We're all different. And everything God created has its unique shape, form, and level and position. Night is night and day is day. Everything in the universe has its space it occupies, its time when it exists or when it's stronger or not so strong, and it exists at its unique level. What am I talking about? In Hebrew, it's called Alam, Shana, and Nefesh. In all of these three domains, space, time, and spirituality, the soul, we all serve God with our own unique talents, on our own unique levels. Let's look at space. There is Jerusalem, which is spiritually higher than the rest of Israel. And Israel is higher than the rest of the world. Within Jerusalem, there was and will be a temple with the courtyard, which is higher than Jerusalem itself. Within the courtyard, there is a holy and the Holy of Holies, which are sequentially created even higher than the courtyard itself. So everything has its clear borders or limits in relationship to each other within space. Now let's look at time. Time, we have weeks, we have Shabbat, we have Rosh Chodesh, all festivals, and above all festivals of Yom Kippur, even though Shabbat is considered a more holy festival. So we have clear time levels for everything. Even within Shabbat, there is a more important time just before the end of Shabbat, just before we actually say Havdalah, the light of the light time. The same logic applies to Nefesh, or our functional levels. Look at the Jewish tribes. There are 12 tribes. Each tribe has its own purpose, Some are traders, scientists, Torah scholars, priests, etc. Again, we see clear limits, definitions, purpose for everything. In order to understand this a little bit deeper, let's look at the human body, which is another example of the way the universe is structured. The principle is the same. Every organ has its own place, its definition, and its purpose. And it's exactly the same principle. Our brain is our thoughts and nerve center for all body, for all of it, for the whole system. Our eyes, our ears, our sense of touch, our smell, our taste, our five senses of perception. Through those sensors we take in information into our individual system. Our liver, for instance, cleans our blood, and the breathing system brings oxygen into our body. I understand, you get the idea. All organs of our body take something from the system, what they need within limits, and contribute to the system, its functionality, provide its services within limits again. This is the body in balance, and the universe works exactly the same way. When the body is not, let's say there is a cancer inside the body, it takes much more than its limits. It takes over the body and eventually kills the person. That's a body not in balance. All right. Korach was saying, let's abolish all limitations. Everybody is equal. So that is basically a call for destruction of the fundamental aspects of the world, destruction of the God's creation, since nothing can exist without clear definition of the above stated limits. You will say, okay, I understand now why God punished Korach and company so badly, because they wanted to destroy his creation? Yes. Well, we have now a lot of powerful people acting exactly the same way as Korach did. On Sunday night, a majority of Minneapolis City Council in the United States agreed to dismantle the city's police department. A civilized world cannot exist without laws and enforcement of those laws. Limits and enforcement of these limitations are critical to the very existence of civilization. This is one of the 7 Noahide laws given to Noah after the flood, when God says to him, create a judicial system and enforcement of the laws. So, these Korach offsprings in the United States right now want to remove these limits. They are saying, let's all be equal and there will be no more punishment for crimes committed. This is a call to anarchy, a total demolition of the civilized society. Please don't get me wrong. Black lives matter. I agree with that. And that is absolutely critical. Police brutality must be controlled. Absolutely critical. But dismantling law enforcement is not the solution. It will not resolve the problems. The solution is to teach the children of all communities that everyone has his or her purpose in life, that there are ways to get education, profession, and eventually ways to enjoy life, regardless of your level of so-called privileges, perceived privileges or real privileges, regardless of that. Yes, it requires effort, perseverance, desire to succeed. Ask all of those African Americans who are lawyers today, doctors, judges, you name it. They came from deprived families without any white man privileges. But they succeeded, so it's not impossible. But this is the only way to build a world. This is the way God has created the world, with its space, its time, and clearly defined limits for every one of those three domains. Let's build it, instead of rioting, looting, and calling for elimination of law and order. Shabbat Shalom.